folks, it's Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel from the Woodshed Agency, and you are listening to a new episode of Successfully Funded. Here we go. Let's turn it up. Turn it up. All right, crowdfunders, how's everybody doing out there in the beautiful, wonderful land of crowdfunding? Thank you all for jumping on this podcast or this Facebook Live or wherever you're listening. I am your host, Jeff Fuzzy Wenzel, CEO of Woodshed Agency, and this is our podcast. And what we do here is we like to talk to project creators while they're either in the middle of a campaign or their campaign has just finished up, or, within the last few months, their campaign has ended, like today's episode. And what we do is we want to know, what do they do to become successfully funded? Because that is the most important thing here, right? Is how do you guys launch your projects on platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo? And how do you raise that capital you need to, to get your projects going? So today, we've got an episode that is a rebroadcast. This episode originally aired back in July. It's for the company QuenchSea, and that's QuenchSea, S-E-A. And they created this manual power device, and it instantly turns seawater into drinkable freshwater. Yeah, that's right. Seawater into drinkable freshwater, and you hold it in your hand. It's pretty crazy. So I'm going to be talking to Hannah Forbes. She's from the company that helping their marketing, and they ran an Indiegogo, like I said. Very, very successful campaign. Something that was it was one of those conversations where I'm talking to something that I know I'm going to be able to see in the future, something that is very, very unique. So again, I definitely recommend everybody sticking around and listening to this interview that's coming up here in just a little bit about QuenchSea. So, and then also our musical guest today is a band from Detroit called the Erers. The Erers. And this was a really, really fun GBS session back in the day. A really solid 3-piece band that, I don't know, it's just a really fun song coming up at the end here. So make sure you guys stick around for after the interview when we have our musical guest, the Erers, on. So what else is going on? It's Monday. We're kicking it off. It's about 12:49. I'm a little late to getting the episode up today. And you know why? I went to Bikram Yoga. Woo! Yep, that's right. The yoga place opened up. Or I'm sorry, hot yoga, I think it's called now. I don't know if I can call it Bikram Yoga because I think there's a big lawsuit and whatnot. I'm not 100% sure. My point to all that is I haven't been there in a while. Now, if you guys are regular listeners, back in the, before the pandemic, I was regularly 3 days a week, sometimes 4. Sometimes I sink that Saturday morning in. But those Saturday mornings are tough. Just tough to get to for me. Usually I have a little bit of a party on a Friday night. But got there, wore a mask, social distance, and I'm tired. I'm not gonna lie, I'm tired, and I'm just pounding the water here, just pounding it. Yeah. But man, am I sore, because my body has probably been sitting in, well, not probably, has been sitting in a chair for almost, over a year without doing basically very little body movement. And I know I clench. I do a lot of this, but my shoulders are up. So man, there's a lot of moves today where I was like, oh my gosh, I am struggling. But feels good to be there, right? Feels good. I'm going to go Wednesday and Friday this week as well. Gonna get back into that habit, because mental, man. It's the mental. That's what I always talk about, man. Go back to some of those episodes where you hear me talking about, starting yoga again. And I've been going for almost 4 years, maybe almost 5 years now. Now, it feels like every year I have some major catastrophe that slows me down for a while. I remember the early going, my dad first started getting sick really bad, so I was going up and back and forth. So I kind of stopped going there, after a year or so. And then I think there was a year where we just ran out of money. We just didn't have a lot of money, so I stopped then. And then this recent one is the pandemic. But in a nutshell, it was great to be there. Great to get the sweat going. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, what else is going on, man? What do you guys got going on? What are you guys working on? I know over here it's got some snow outside. Had to do some shoveling yesterday, which was nice. I've left from my old house. A lot of sidewalks, a lot of long driveways. I had to get a snowblower, man, because it sucked. Now I've got one sidewalk and a driveway that only fits like literally 2 cars. There's like it's like, and if you're standing in the back of my car, you're in the road. So very short driveway. So man, you can knock it out with a shovel in 10 minutes. But it was we got a little snow last night. And yeah, so how about that football? How about that football, man? I mean, you may be a Tom Brady hater, and I understand that. Sometimes when people win are always just a winner, you get hated on, right? I get that, but come on, we'll never see anything like this again in our lifetime. There's no way we'll see a quarterback get to 10 Super Bowls. We'll never see that. No, but I thought it was interesting of the idea that I heard on a couple interviews as to just what is the difference, man? Tom Brady's a 43-year-old guy with not a very strong arm, not very athletic. What is the magic? How do you go to another team and get back to the Super Bowl? Now, granted, you have really good team members. There's no doubt about that, and players. But really, the other thing that's happening in this is the interviews with these Buccaneer players who have been on the franchise for a while were just like, he brought this belief into the locker room that we could do it. It's not far-fetched. And I found that incredibly interesting to hear, because when it comes to crowdfunding, when it comes to your startups, your entrepreneurship, there has to be this sort of energy behind the scenes of just like, no, you can do it. That's it. You can be very, very successful. And then you need team members around you. You need these other things, but it can happen. And sometimes that doubt that might seep in and curl around and hold you down a little bit, maybe not make you work as hard or whatever it might be. You got to get rid of that. And I thought that was intriguing. You're talking about a franchise that hasn't been in the Super Bowl in 20 years, right? I'm in Detroit with the Lions, and I don't think we'll ever be in a Super Bowl. And you really come back to, it is a belief system that it actually could happen for real, not fantasy for real. It really could happen. So that's interesting. That's interesting because I see how you can skate very close to this delusional line, right? You could get very close to like, yeah, no, I believe I'm going to be a billionaire. Okay, maybe. Chances of that, slim to none, maybe not. I don't know. But maybe you can only really have that vibe of believing, that you'll get to a Super Bowl or whatever it is, that you'll achieve greatness, is if you've at least done it once. So maybe that's what we're talking about, is that you really can't have that energy if if you've never done it, right? So I have a lot of confidence in crowdfunding. Why? Because I've done it many, 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 many times, right? So that doesn't mean that we're not trying to achieve greatness, right? But I have this sort of belief when I look at a project in a campaign that, yes, this can happen. And by the way, I'm not comparing myself to Tom Brady. I'm just trying to align it to like crowdfunding, startups, entrepreneurship, and whatnot. So I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting some quotes I heard from Buccaneer team members, and I don't know. I think it's something to really stand back and really take from it, of like, truly having belief in your system with your team members, with your family, your husband, maybe you're working on it with family driven, right? Whatever. You got to make sure that self-doubt is not all around you, because it doesn't help. Certainly doesn't help. So yeah, that's my thoughts, man. I don't know. I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the Super Bowl. Should be a good one, right? I hope the Chiefs don't just blow them out. But again, how could you bet that? How could you even think that with a Tom Brady team, right? There's just no way. There'll be something, right? But yeah, those Chiefs are pretty good, man. They looked pretty good yesterday. But it's nice watching a little football. I don't watch a lot of it anymore. I don't know. I've lost it a little bit. But once it gets to like playoffs and championship time, it's fun to watch. It is fun to watch. So, all right, guys. Again, if you are thinking about working on a crowdfunding campaign, you got to go over to woodshed.agency right now. By the way, I don't know this camera. Oh, look at that. Look. Let me go. There's Buddy the dog. If you're thinking about launching a crowdfunding campaign, you got to go over to woodshed.agency right now. One, go to our blog section. Tons and tons of content. New content comes out every Tuesday, right? So go check that out. If that's not that doesn't, blow your skirt up, maybe you got to go over to the podcast and subscribe there. Smash that subscribe button if you're listening to this on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you're listening to it at. Maybe you're on YouTube, or maybe you're Facebook Live in it. Follow us on Facebook so you get notified that we're going live. Or pick the consultation button. There's a consultation tab. Click on that. It goes to my calendar link, and you get 20 minutes with me. Tell me what you're working on, and I'll point you in the right direction, or I'll tell you that hey, just keep going true north. You're on it, man. But soup, that should be very, very valuable stuff for you. So again, lots of info out there. And listen to this episode today, man. Listen to what Hannah's talking about in terms of how to launch a project that is, almost fantasy-like. Like, you know what I mean? Something that's like such a big idea, like turning seawater into freshwater, with the tool that you have. I mean, just doesn't it seem like that's like fantasy land? So how do you sort of navigate this big idea and still show it in the crowdfunding space? So again, we're going to dive way into that. And then again, like I said, stick around for the Erers afterwards. It's going to be, they are a good rock band. So, all right, with all that said, I think it's time that we kick it to my interview. All right, Hannah, so the red light's on. We have to make some record magic here. So hopefully you're ready to go with it. And I have one question for you to start. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, I had something really boring. It was like, it sounds even worse than it is. Basically just cornflakes, but they're called, it's like our own brand, like fortified flakes. So gotta get that fiber.
Okay. All right. And nothing, no, just some milk in that, some regular milk?
Yeah, just milk and then coffee. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that a normal breakfast? Is that like I have that same thing every day?
I kind of mix it up quite a lot, actually. So I'm just going through a flakes phase. But before that, it was Marmite on toast, which is very British. But that was my like flavor of the week. Who knows what will happen next week?
Oh man, we have to do these episodes once a week just to kind of keep up on your breakfast routine. But well, instead of that, why don't we actually talk about why we're chatting today? We're going to talk about your very successful Indiegogo campaign. Why don't you tell my listeners, one, who you are and what you're raising money for over on Indiegogo right now?
Yeah, super. So I'm Hannah, and I'm from QuenchSea, which is one product part of the Hydro Wind Energy Limited company. And Hydro Wind Energy is a company that works on both small scale and large scale green solutions to fight the water crisis. And specifically, QuenchSea is a handheld desalination device that requires only manual power to turn seawater into freshwater. And that's what we're fundraising for in Indiegogo.
Now, I'll be frank. When I first saw this idea, it's one of those things where I was like, yeah, there's just no way. What's going on here? Am I nuts on that? Is that how most people see it? Because I mean, I see it do it. The page looks great. You're funding, you're doing well, but it almost seems like it's a little bit of fairy taleism. Like, what? So like, what's going on? And where did this idea sort of come from?
Yeah, that's totally understandable, and we've definitely had that reaction. I think ultimately that reaction is because it does sound too good to be true. Like it's incredibly innovative, but really, actually, what's happened is that reverse osmosis technology and reverse osmosis filters are not new technology, but the price has significantly decreased over the last kind of 5 years. So we're really just coming at a point where those filters are more accessible. And so because of that, we're the first ones to take this technology and make it more accessible and more low cost. And specifically, we decided to use that technology for a handheld device so they could be distributed to those in need very quickly. Right. So yeah, so I can completely understand that reaction. But in terms of how it's actually come to this point, it's been quite kind of methodical in terms of how the industry has changed.
Yeah. So I guess because it sounds like it's a bigger company, right? So where does this handheld product sort of fit into the whole big picture of what the company does?
Sure. So this is our first consumer product. We're a Techstars-backed company. So the company's been actually based in Dubai for the last few months working on the Techstars accelerator. And there's definitely like bigger visions for larger scale solutions. But in terms of where this particularly fits, this is our first opportunity to bring something that we feel is the most effective way to use our time to fight the world's water crisis. Because while their big solutions already exist, like big desalination plants already exist, only a handheld device can really be distributed quickly at low cost and actually give anyone that is in need of water immediate access and immediate ownership over that production.
So, I mean, it feels like this is just it's a huge idea, right? So, just in general. So how does the design of this sort of start to come together in terms of, cost have come down and, what's kind of happening behind the scenes to get it to a point where I'm looking at it on an Indiegogo page? It seems like there's a lot of steps in there.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not on the product development team, so I can't talk about all the kind of granular challenges that they've gone through. But where we're at now is that we've gone through several phases of prototypes to the point where we're at the final technological prototype. And the next step is basically repackaging it. So the actual technology works, and you'll see that on our page as well. We have a testing video and a taste test video, which shows the technology. And the next step now is making it more aesthetic. Basically, at the moment, there's lots of wires and it looks very lab-based, which it is. And the next step is the more kind of form industrial design aspect of the work.
Right. So I guess real quick, where do you fit in the company? Is it all marketing, or does, since you're not in the design, where do you fit in? What is your main focus?
Sure. So my background is actually in mechanical engineering. So everyone in the team does have an idea of the technology, and I think that was really important to the founder, Lee. But my particular role at the moment is I'm focusing on fundraising. So both the equity raising and Indiegogo raising I'm project managing that work. Gotcha.
So then so my question, I wanted to make sure I was asking a question to the right person is, I find that ideas like this, they can get so big in the reward-based crowdfunding space, right? So it's like, everybody could have one of these things. It's going to save the world, right? We're going to save water shortage. How do you navigate that sort of narrative, not having that big of a narrative, but having a narrative of like, this is an actual real solution that, we want to bring to the market. We know it could be big, but our focus is, right here, right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely. It's a really good question. And actually, to be honest, something that we've had to learn and adapt from, because we did, and as you kind of said, it is something that is revolutionary. And when you hear something that small can turn seawater into freshwater, it's like, wow. But actually having the constant narrative of this is revolutionary, this is innovative, this is changing the world, I think that there's like fatigue associated with that. And that's something we did notice quite quickly. So that's been a journey that we've been on in terms of refining that tone of voice, refining the copy that we do with the ads, to a point now where our main focus is more kind of natural engagement and a real focus on some of the work that we've been doing with our community. So asking them how we think we should sell the product and talking closer to our backers. So the ways we're doing that, we've got our mailing list that we've been building, and we've been using that to ask for feedback. And we also have a private Facebook group as well. So yeah, it's a really good question, and something that we've been working on is definitely continuing to evolve how we manage that narrative around the product. Yeah,
sure. And a product like this, how do you? So it seems like to me, and again, this is me looking from afar. So if I'm off base, I'm off base, but I'm just looking at it. It feels like it's a product that potentially, even though it's a B2C right now, still has a little bit of a B2B. Like I could imagine it on like, a ship, right? Or like, you're in a scenario where like you need water, right? You're in a bad situation, right? And thank God I have this thing. So does that make it hard for like the average consumer, a guy like me? I don't know. I live in Michigan. Yeah, I've got water, but the water's never above my face. I don't know. I'm just sitting in a little pool, right? Like I'm not in this world, right? So like, how do you sort of navigate who this customer is, or this customer persona as to where you are right now?
Yeah, sure. And again, this was something we experimented with. So we had an idea of who we thought we were appealing to. The main group was survivalist, which is so huge in the US. Like coming from the UK, did not get it, but it's such a big like survivalist preppers. There's just a huge community of people that really value emergency products. And so we thought that would fit. Also, sailors, that's a huge thing. If you can be at sea and not have to bring water, that's significant. So yeah, we had an idea, and then when we started running ads, doing some outreach, doing some work, that gradually kind of got refined. What we're really clear on saying, it is an emergency device. It's not something that you should rely on, because it's manual effort. It's a lot of work. You don't want to be producing all your water for the rest of your sailing trip, for example, using just the device. And through advertising it as an emergency device, I think that naturally honed the audience, because those that recognize what emergencies they could be useful recognize that, I think, within their lifestyle. So again, it was an experimental process at the beginning, and I think now we found it's most appropriate for those who live near the sea, are regularly going on kayaking trips, sailing trips, and have been in those sticky situations before. And on the kind of donation humanitarian side, anyone that kind of has an experience of either living in a country which struggles with access to clean water, or works within that industry as well, we found a lot of people interested from that side.
So let's talk a little bit about, because I hear this quite a bit, where a lot of my campaigns want to have that humanitarian effort. How do you walk that fine line between not being too much of that, or having your focus be too much on that, as opposed to the product? And because I see a lot of scenarios where I'm like, it's not, if I'm going on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, I want to buy the thing, like I want the thing. So like, how did you guys decide on how to navigate between those two worlds?
Yeah, sure. So, that's totally fair. And I think maybe a problem actually at the moment is that you see a lot of companies kind of greenwashing. I know greenwashing is termed specifically for climate change, but washing their product with some kind of social purpose to kind of fit with that within that group. We were aware of not doing that. In terms of finding that line, we did market this as a consumer product. So none of our ads were running and talking about the humanitarian aspect. We made that a big part of our communication with our community and on our website, but our ads were like, if you want to buy this thing, come buy this thing. And then when you landed on the page, there's more messaging around that. So it really was a case of, we're working with NGOs. It's a big part of what we're doing as a company. But for the actual Indiegogo campaign, we were focusing on people wanting to buy the product because they thought it was a great product, not because they wanted to donate to a charity. That wasn't that wasn't the purpose of the campaign. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's something that I think you guys did a really good job of navigating it, because it's there, but it's not your main focus. I think you guys did a really good job at that. So where in this whole process does crowdfunding actually start to kind of fit into the equation of like, hey, we should go on Indiegogo and launch this?
Yeah, well, I think as obviously you all know, crowdfunding has really evolved from really being a way to kind of democratize access to funding and encourage early adopters, to now really quite a very advanced and sophisticated product launch platform. I think we fit somewhere along that timeline. So we have a prototype that isn't the version that's going to be in backers' hands. It's going to be a much slicker, more aesthetic version. And so we wanted to launch the product. We felt like it was really good timing, especially having just come off the Techstars Accelerator. And also in the middle of this coronavirus crisis, where access to clean water is so vital, it felt like a really good kind of solution now to onboard people and get people interested in talking about it, and then use those funding to complete production. So it was the case that, we had the equity funding to move forward with this, but we just really wanted to involve people earlier. We feel like a big part of our mission is involving people that are passionate about fighting the water crisis. And it feels like the people that are on Indiegogo and on Kickstarter are the kind of people that want to be involved in that and be part of that early conversation. So that's why we decided to do it.
That's cool. And you mentioned something in there that I think is a challenge or a struggle point for a lot of creators. Maybe you can talk about this. Is, you mentioned like, well, the final version is going to be more slick. It's going to have this, it's going to be smaller or whatever, whatever all the little final designs get to happen. How did you know that you at least had something that will represent what it's going to do in your photos, your videos, all of your content, social media, all that stuff? How did you know that you at least were at a point where like, I feel comfortable putting this out, even though the final one may be tweaked a little bit? I think that's tough for a lot of people to not be like, oh, we have the perfect version, now we can do it, right? Like, it may never be the perfect version. So how did you just know to like start pushing it out there,
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's definitely not an easy decision to make as a creator. I completely understand why people might hold off. I think the biggest thing is we knew we had validation. So we had a third party come into our lab, and test it and say like, yes, this does everything it's supposed to. We did kind of our taste test video where we literally had someone take seawater and then drink it a few moments later. So we felt like we had those validation mechanisms to ensure that, first of all, be completely transparent about the state of the product development. And then we also had a design timeline and a manufacturing timeline to show the final product. So it was really a case of timing for us in terms of the industry was really vital. And I think we had a window there to act within. And then once we had the validation content, it just felt like the right time. And we were getting that messaging from our audience as well. So it's a combination of us creating the right content that we felt was the right content, and then also getting that feedback from our community at it feeling like the right time to launch.
Sure. How long of a time frame are we talking from concept to where we are right now?
Sure. So the final concept for QuenchSea was around, let me make sure I'm getting this right. So it was coming into the beginning of this year. It was the kind of the dirty prototype. It's like, I think that's a very harsh word considering considering what it was doing. And then the final kind of slick prototype was ready at the beginning of spring. And since then, it's now got to the point where the prototype was the one that we wanted to share with the world and raise from. That's cool. So as a team, what was the thing that was keeping everybody up at night the most? Was there one thing that you guys are just really like, this needs to happen, you know? Yeah, I think you touched on it at the beginning, really. It's this is the first time we'd really kind of pushed the product, pushed the team, been very open with what we were doing. And because it was this innovative product, and because people have been burnt on crowdfunding before, we were getting the comments that was like, this is a scam, this is too good to be true. And those are really hard to process, especially, and I think our head of digital strategy, Mo, he was definitely more level-headed than me, because I think you take everything very personally. And he was really good at responding and saying like, yeah, we get we understand why you're saying this. Here's our testing video. Feel free to ask any questions. So I think, like Mo definitely managed that really well. But I think that was the thing. I think this is the first time, and I think anyone who has any experience of running a business or really advertising themselves or pushing something that they're passionate about, there's that level of vulnerability. And I think that was something that was hard for all of us to manage the first time. But I think it was managed really well by the team. And I definitely can't take personal credit for that, because I was boring.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I mean, you mentioned it. I think it's you mentioned vulnerability. I think it's the biggest trait that all project creators need to have, because you're going into a space where your idea may be wrong or may be validated. It may be, you may have to be open to listen to their critiquing of it. That's challenging for a lot of people who are like, this is my baby, this is my thing, So, it's good to hear that you guys as a team went into that knowing, there's going to be a lot of, it's a weird ride, it's a whole different animal, and the community is so strong. You may be walking away with absolutely amazing ideas that change your company in a good way, and it's good to be open for that, Yeah, definitely. And actually one thing, so it'll be officially announced, but we are planning on extending the campaign, as I've kind of mentioned in our kind of prior chat. And the reason for that is because we basically want to supply everyone with filters. And we've done this because everyone has been saying, can we get a filter with this? Where can we buy filters? And we were like, hey, we understand this is a big thing that the community want. And understandably, you want to have that backup filter. And we don't want to make that user journey for getting the filter difficult. And that has come purely from listening to our feedback and listening to what people want. And I don't think you ever really get that relationship with consumers on like an e-commerce site that you do like to do with crowdfunding. Yeah, 100%. Well, let's flip over. I mean, we've danced all around the Indiegogo. We haven't actually talked about the actual numbers. So while we're talking right now, it says 6 days, but you mentioned you're going to extend. But over 1,800 backers, $167,000 as of right now. It's still obviously growing, but the number that sticks out to me is actually that backer number, the over 1,800 people. I think that is a huge testament. So, what were you guys looking for after you determined that Indiegogo was going to be a part of this? What told you that you guys were ready to launch? Did you have a lot of email addresses, good social media? Like, how did you know that we're ready to hit the launch button? So it was really our mailing list that kind of did it. So we had an idea of the kind of milestones we wanted to hit based on just talking to previous backers and understanding, having an idea of crowdfunding.
talking to the Indiegogo team as well, that were really supportive. So we were hitting those kind of quantitative numbers. So we knew like that in theory we were ready. Yeah. And then we were just getting comments where people were like, where can I buy this? Where can I buy this? How much is it? And it just felt like the longer that kind of pre-launch phase went on, the more people would kind of get turned away. So we wanted to make sure we were hitting this kind of tide where people had heard about it, had engaged with it, and then were ready to buy. And I think that is a balancing act, and it's always difficult finding the right moment. But for us, that was the point where we felt like we were ready.
Yeah. Has there been something that stood out as like, man, we were not expecting this, really big in Singapore or whatever it might be? Has there been something that just stood out that you're like, we just would have never thought this at all?
I think the amount of PR that we've got has been amazing. We have been working with an agency who have been fantastic, but particularly the range of different responses. We got featured on what was it? It was something like Boomers Daily. So you like the term like millennials, boomer, like there's a blog, and they were raving about it and they loved it. And we've been on like a few German prints and French and just like all over Europe. And I think that's been really amazing to see. We've had a really range from, more on like BBC World Service today to, Boomers Daily and like these really niche water publications that are talking about a product and telling their backers about it, telling their readers about it. So I think that's been the biggest thing actually, with just how enthusiastic and the extent of print as well that we're keen to talk about it has been really amazing to see.
Yeah, press is challenging a lot for crowdfunding. And I'll tell you, for us as an agency, we focus on it. It's a part of it. But unless your product has that, pretty much the thing I opened up our conversation with, that sort of wow factor of like, I need to see this. I gotta deep it. That's what gets pressed. That's really what moves the needle. If you've got something that it's a crowdfunding campaign, So you have that sort of element that really I can see. I mean, I would definitely read those articles. I could see that being on a Mashable or a TechCrunch and going, what is this thing? Because it's got that factor. So I can see how press really, really jumped on this campaign. So let's talk a little bit about what has been like an overarching strategy. I know you had press, you said you're working with some help on this stuff, but just to kind of keep the energy up for an Indiegogo campaign, what have you been doing inside of it just to make sure that you're always driving enough traffic to get backers?
Sure. And I'm sure you're kind of familiar with this term, but really we've really understood this. Crowdfunding is a marathon. And it's definitely about kind of keeping energy, not just within the campaign, kind of that metaphorical energy and momentum, but also just keeping energy levels within the team high. So I think a big thing is that naturally different members of the team have kind of taken over in communication. So we've had people kind of dip in and out of replying to comments, replying to emails, and managing that side. So we've kind of distributed that workload, I think, very effectively. And then in terms of actually the momentum of the campaign, I think we've been really, as you'll know, the Indiegogo dashboard gives you quite a lot of information about kind of conversion, what's working, where the pledges are coming from. And we've just been really kind of receptive to those things. And I think initially we weren't as reactive as we could have been, because there's always this concern, we've got 30 days, we don't want to take any risks and change anything and then it not work out. But actually coming towards the end, we were like, well, we've done what we wanted to now. Let's see what else works. Let's keep the learnings from this campaign going. So in the last few days, we changed like the complete kind of aesthetic of the ads that we were using. We've done more, we're using Kick Booster, and I've done some outreach to actual boosters and saying like, what do you think we could do? Let's get your feedback, and just basically more talking. So I think that's been a big thing. There's been like the kind of big things like the ads and press, and thinking about the messaging and whether we need to change that, but also just kind of getting really into the details, talking to people that have backed or talking to people that haven't yet backed and asking them what they think we can do to change. So I think if there's a way I would summarize how we've kept momentum, it's giving ourselves complete visibility over what backers are thinking, what potential backers are thinking, and what the wide audience is thinking. Yeah,
that's great advice. So after the money starts dropping or this campaign kind of closes up, what starts to happen on your guys' end to get these into backers' hands?
Sure. So as I've kind of mentioned, the inner workings of the product is ready. It's just not looking very pretty. So the next step is a big thing is certification of the product, which we'll be getting. And then the focus is on form design, finding the the best design for the outside of it, testing that specifically, testing how the design feels for users in terms of use, and then just doing lots and lots of rigorous testing. So the February delivery date, so it's February 2021, that's definitely giving a lot of leeway, I think, because of the current situation and the fact that not all team members are in Dubai, including myself.
Right.
So there was, inefficiencies associated with that. But we think we're aiming to deliver before there, definitely. And the vast majority of product development is going to be testing and just refining really the design that we already have. Gotcha.
Does a product like this, so here in the States, we have like the FDA, does a product like this have to qualify for anything like that in terms of like it meets some standard or anything because it's water and drinking and filtering? Like, is there anything like that you have to go through?
So I think there'll be someone in the product development team that would give a better answer to this. But my understanding is that in order to say that you have cleaned water in any way, it has to be below a certain TDS. And so that's what we have to make sure it is. And I believe that's part of the certification process.
Gotcha.
Make sure we're able to sell it as it is.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know, something that just popped in my head and because you are, filtering. So I was wondering what the certification or what the lawyer language on the box has to say, that type of stuff.
Exactly. There's also, patents that have been, filed with that in mind as well. Right. So I'm definitely sure that you definitely can't say like, here's puddle water, you can definitely drink it.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. So I guess for you guys as a company, we've kind of talked about maybe what this next year might look like. How about a 5-year picture? Like what does this look like for you guys, this product in particular, and just kind of as a whole?
Sure. So I think the focus for QuenchSea, and we've made kind of big pledges, humanitarian pledges, and the campaign is very much part of that, buy one, donate one. So a big part of the journey with QuenchSea over the next 5 years is, to be honest, vastly associated with that humanitarian aspect. So once the product development is done and the kind of consumer marketing side is delivered, the main focus will be on partnering with our NGOs, expanding the number of NGOs we're working with, and really distributing them as quick as possible. And this was really the design for QuenchSea. The innovation in terms of the filters, it's the actual technology is not the innovation, it's the packaging of the innovation. So having done this and created this device, which is going to be so important for the humanitarian crisis, then the focus shifts onto bigger, larger scale devices and further innovation within that technology. So on our website, QuenchSea.world, there are further links to the different kind of concepts and the other products that we're developing, which is probably the best place to kind of see that. But yeah, I think within water in general, and even specifically within the ocean, there's still so much potential, and the technology is rapidly changing and evolving. So really, as a company, the focus is going to be on looking at other ways, other innovations that we can support beyond kind of QuenchSea.
Yeah. Is there a government play in this for you guys in terms of like a hurricane strikes, and it's like we have FEMA here in the States of like, we ordered 50,000 of these things, they all have to go to Florida, or whatever it is. Is that like a part of where you guys see your roadmap going, something along those lines?
That I think that definitely, those operations and who manages those operations are of course vital to any kind of humanitarian relief. I think in terms of our role with any of those kind of emergency crisis situations, we would work with our NGOs. So we wouldn't I don't think we would directly work with governments managing crises. It would be through the NGOs that have a lot more experience kind of managing that. But definitely we obviously want QuenchSea, if it's going to be useful in a situation, to be able to be provided quickly.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I've been asking everybody at the end of my interview, since we've all been locked in, a few questions that aren't about crowdfunding. So if you're game, I can shoot them at you if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So what have you been watching on the old Netflix or the Hulu or whatever streaming channel you got?
So I just started watching Queer Eye, kind of half an hour ago. So that's, I've enjoyed the first 20 minutes, but the jury's still out. I haven't seen enough of it. The big one I've been watching is the Fargo TV series. I haven't yet seen the film, but I started watching TV series. Very good.
The TV series is amazing. Yes. Good. So I think there's 3 seasons of that. So hold on, they are all very, very, very good. And you know what's interesting about the Queer Eye is I actually I do a lot of coaching for startups, and I tell a lot of people like go watch that because there's such a lot of it is about self-esteem, business, and presenting yourself. And I'm always like, if you're going to do crowdfunding, like watch this. You've got to present yourself. You've got to go out and talk, right? Like do stuff like we're doing right now. It's a big part of it. So that's great. How about books? You reading any books right now?
Yeah, I have to say, I think a lot of people have had this transition in lockdown where at the beginning I was like reading a book every few days. I was making banana bread. I was going on runs. And then I really stagnated. Like I think since it's extended longer than maybe a lot of people thought, the routine hasn't been as strong. But recently I have started reading again and got kind of back into being a bookworm. I'm reading a fiction at the moment, Where the Crawdads Sing.
Okay.
I can't remember where I actually discovered it, but yeah, I've got into fiction recently, so not probably your listeners not the most interested, but in terms of some really good books I have read in lockdown, big one was Rest. That was really good. It's very similar to, I don't know if you've read Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
I just talked about that about I think like 10 episodes ago. We had an alarm clock, all about sleep. And I think he talked about that same book that he read. So yeah.
Yeah, so I read that kind of a couple of years ago, and it really transformed the way I thought about sleep. And Rest is a similar one. It basically just talks about how important deep rest is for your well-being. So I read that, and that really that was really good. So if anyone is looking for a non-fiction recommendation, I definitely recommend that.
That's cool. Now I know you listen to my podcast every day. You're always listening to that. But is there any other podcasts that you might give some time to?
I think my recommendations are probably ones that everyone listens to, like 99PI, I absolutely love. This American Life, I really love. And finally, this might be very UK centric, but it's called The High Low. It's basically two best friends, and you can always tell that dynamic on a podcast when they're really good friends because it's absolutely hilarious. And they just do similarly to what we've just done. They do book reviews and good TV programs that they've watched during the week, and that's a really good one to kind of get recommendations from.
That's cool. All right, my last one is there any like resources in terms of blogs or a website you kind of go to consistently just to either one, stay up on your industry or stay up on marketing, or just to kind of, dive into like, oh, this is what people are doing. We've mentioned Facebook ads quite a bit. Is there anything that you're kind of always going to as a resource?
I think, honestly, I tend to go to different resources depending what other people have recommended. I have this one newsletter that I really love. It's by Farnham Street, and the newsletter is called Brain Food, and it's really good. I think it's every 2 weeks they send a newsletter, and it has like a few quotes in it, quotes from the week to like summarize the week, a podcast recommendation, a few books recommendation, an articles recommendation, and it's always just like a really good curation of good content. So that's really good. I recommend that.
That's cool. So, you mentioned it before, the website, but where should we send people? Where do you want people to kind of dive into your world, even if it's outside the Indiegogo or the social media? Like, where do you want people to go to kind of learn what you guys are working on and stay up to speed on it?
Sure. So definitely the website is the best place at the moment to have a full overview of what we're doing. So that's QuenchSea.world. But we really, and as I've kind of spoken about, our community is a huge part of why we're doing what we're doing, but also how we're evolving what we're doing. So if you've kind of listened to this and you're interested in speaking to the team more and just engaging kind of more intimately with what we're doing, the private Facebook group is the best place. So if you just search QuenchSea, you'll see our Facebook page and our Facebook group, and come and join and say hi.
Awesome. Well, Hannah, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. It's Friday. Your day's winding down here. It's amazing. Just one of those campaigns that I'm just like, I was giddy about having this conversation because I knew it was going to be a good one. So I encourage everybody to go check it out. Go over to Indiegogo. I have everything in the show notes here. So make sure you go check out, say hi, become a backer, support what they're working on, because it was a really, really amazing campaign. And I wish you guys a lot of luck in the future. It's great what you guys are working on.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
time to help find the flavor. And you say you see what you wanna do. Well, girl, you know it's all up to you. It's a golden sun, always love to roll. Either step aside, or let me give you a ride. Let me do me a favor, let me taste the flavor in your flavor. No flavor in your flavor. I'm wondering now where you found it. You got my attention for flavor retention. And you say you see what you wanna do. Well, girl, you know it's all up to you. Yeah, you go and know all the love you roll. Either step aside, or let me give you a ride. And do me a favor, let me taste the flavor in your flavor. More flavor in your flavor.